the 10,000 to 1 outsider, Girona could win La Liga, and they're doing it with a group of players that nobody wanted.
Was it expected for Girona to be this good? Absolutely not. From rough diamonds into just general diamonds.
Girona were 10,000 to 1 to win La Liga at the start of the season, and now they find themselves, a quarter of the season gone, and battling out at the top of the table with Real Madrid and Barcelona. But the question here is, how the hell is a team with double the odds of Leicester in 15-16 doing it?
Girona are obviously linked to the City group, so that affects their transfer strategy. So they have several young players and sort of slightly more veteran players that have been around the City group and kind of played for them in various clubs.
The City group is a network made up from 13 clubs owned all by Abu Dhabi United Group and figureheaded by Sheikh Mansour, the Manchester City owner, of course. And after buying Manchester City, they have been relentlessly expanding their portfolio from Bahia in Brazil to Mumbai City in India. But in 2017, they sealed a major stake in Girona. Now, the 44.3% stake that they acquired was an identical holding to that of Girona Football Group, an agency owned by Pierre Guardiola, the brother of Pep Guardiola. Now, interestingly, Manchester City loaned 3 players to Girona in 2017. Marlos Moreno, Douglas Luiz, now at Aston Villa, of course, and Aleix Garcia, more on him a little bit later on. Now, this wasn't only to improve the Girona playing squad, but it was also seen as a goodwill gesture to help their bid to sign Pep as the Manchester City manager. And the connection to the City group is still evident in the team now. 5 players from the squad have either been at a City-owned club in the past or are on loan from one of the City group teams.
So you have the likes of Dali Blind, Oriol Romeu, who's now at Barcelona, pairing those kind of veteran talents with kind of real young up-and-coming players that they seek to develop into kind of from rough diamonds into just general diamonds.
So as Ruri said, signing young players is a huge part of this progressive approach to allow for Girona to be competitive. But where these players come from is what makes this team fascinating. Amongst their ranks, they have 2 loanees from Barcelona, 3 Real Madrid rejects, and weirdly, 2 ex-Middlesbrough players. But the overall theme of the players Girona have are that they have all faced hardship at one point or another in their careers, and they are a group of misfits, either unwanted by the mega clubs or players that have dragged around La Liga's relegation-threatened clubs. But as I said, that's exactly what makes them fascinating.
Other teams don't seem to have been able to work them out, whereas I think most people thought that they would certainly adjust to them. But so far, Girona have been well beyond anyone's expectations, and their own, it has to be said.
So who is Michel?
It's really hard not to love the Girona manager. He's very lovable. He kind of integrates himself into these clubs. He really buys into the ethos. I mean, he's one of the few managers from outside of Catalonia who's ever learnt Catalan and kind of conducts his press conferences in Catalan.
As a person, Michel is loved in Catalonia by the Girona faithful for how he is off the pitch, but it's his bold tactics that we're going to pull focus to in this section of the video. The formation is a 3-4-3 on paper. The term on paper is crucial here because the 3-4-3, it's merely a way of generally assessing the players' positions. The reality is that this is one of the most fluid, tactical systems in Europe, and it is operating in such a way that it's almost impossible to quantitatively categorize which integer is where. It's almost incalculable even, but that's the beauty of it. Despite the 3-4-3 formation suggesting that Girona use a double pivot, this isn't the truth of the matter. The reality of the matter is that this is a single pivot and incredibly progressive and brave. Daley Blind has the ball in this first screenshot, but what you need to be focusing on is the middle of the park. Ivan Martin is the single pivot which allows Aleix Garcia to virtually be a free role playmaker in the final third, but more on that later. Spoiler alert, he's insane. We've got Ivan Martin here who played against Celta Vigo, but for the most part, it's been Yangel Herrera in this position. But then again, Aleix Garcia has also rotated in there at times, which is a symptom of that interchangeability that we've spoken about when it comes to this team. And here's an example of exactly how it all works. Aleix Garcia hasn't even received the ball yet, but Ivan Martin and Yangel Herrera have already made progressive runs forward. That's so brave, it's unreal. But this singular stat justifies it wholeheartedly. Girona have made the 3rd most passes into the final third in La Liga this season with 385. Only Real Madrid and Barcelona have made more. This is the screenshot that follows. So due to the use of a single pivot, it allows Girona to have 4 attackers operating between the lines of Villarreal, and it allows for progressive passes to be made. Aleix Garcia in this game made 7 progressive passes and 6 passes into the final third, all of which were facilitated by the excellent work of the midfielders around him. And interestingly, in this game they played a 4-1-4-1, which is something very common for Girona. They are able to mix it up from a 3-4-3 to a 4-1-4-1 really easily and seamlessly. But what I'm about to show you next is the most interesting part of the tactic. This screenshot here demonstrates why everybody is calling their formation a 3-1-6. JaackMaate is in possession at right wing, but by this stage of the attack, he has pretty much ended up as the right winger, and the same happens on the left side with Miguel Gutierrez. But the important part of this is what's happening in the middle. Girona do this time and again. They form a parallelogram in and around zone 14, and the beauty of this is that they have control of so many zones of the pitch. So for example, the striker Suani, he takes up a centre back and pins them there, whilst Porto takes up the right hand side half space, Herrera acts as a makeshift 10, and even Martin takes up the left side half space. So to summarise, Girona have options out wide, in the half spaces, in central areas, and a threat around the box. But all of this allows for something else to take place, which is the control of possession from Aleix Garcia. With 6 attackers, Girona often pin the opposition back, and with 4 of the attackers being central, it means that the opposition's midfield naturally drops a little bit deeper. The end result of this is that Aleix Garcia becomes the ultimate recycler of possession and that deep-lying playmaker. It's time to talk about Aleix Garcia, because the ex-Manchester City midfielder is now one of the standout players in Europe this season, and he is the heartbeat of the Girona side, attempting to do the impossible right now. As we've labelled this season, there's a lot of teams with that 100-touch man, and Aleix Garcia is the man for Girona. He's the club's vice-captain and often takes the mantle of on-the-field captain. There isn't a single La Liga player who has made more progressive passes this season than Aleix Garcia with 88, but he's so much more than just a simple ball progressor that plays it into forward players. With 4.98 shot creating actions per 90 this season, he's in the top 1% of midfielders in Europe, and that is absurd when you think that he isn't even an attacking midfielder. He's working in those deep waters. And to get this across in a visual representation, this next screenshot tells you absolutely everything you need to know. And here it is. Girona's invasive way of exploiting space is all underpinned by Garcia's passing ability. In this instance, he plays a defence-splitting pass to Martin like it's absolutely nothing, but the impressive thing isn't the pass itself, it's how frequently he's able to do this type of thing and the vision that he has to do so. And the consistent vision and pictures that he's seeing that allows him to do it so quickly. So with a quarter of the season gone, why is everyone still underestimating Girona? Because Girona finished 10th last season and, despite finishing 10th, still went into this new season as odds-on favourites to get relegated and 10,000 to 1 shouts to win La Liga this year. So it's understandable that they're still being underestimated by everyone. As Ruri said, there wasn't much doubt over the style of Girona or the project at hand, but the big question was over their recruitment, who were coming in to replace their stars from last season. But in doing so, they have held up a mirror to all the La Liga strugglers and provided hope. Not only have they done it in La Liga, but if things continue to go as they are, they could be the shining light for every single recently promoted team across Europe. But it's not all roses for Girona. The success could come at a price. Of course, Girona are owned by the City Group, and the City Group already have a Champions League regular in their midst, Manchester City. So could the waters get murky, or is that not the case?
For some people, it's very hard to love this Girona side because they know that there's that link to City, and multi-club ownership is not something that people are thrilled about. Girona are also building their own project, and the players that they do have access to are obviously an advantage, but not necessarily in kind of competition with City.
So Girona are shocking the whole of world football right now, but the big question of all of this has to be, could they win the league?
Ultimately, no. I mean, it would be the dream of all dreams, and certainly Girona, they don't have European football, so they have plenty of time to prepare these games, but it's tricky for them to maintain this kind of form. Could they challenge for Europe? Certainly, I think so. I mean, I think we can see Girona sustain it, just perhaps not quite with Real Madrid and Barcelona.
With Rory's insightfulness and knowledge of the subject, it's hard to disagree with him on this matter. But with Girona battling it out with the big boys at the top of the table and doing it in unique fashion, never seen before, the question I want to pass on to you, the viewers, is: could they?